Blake Lewis does a great job covering the NFL, the NBA, Sports Journey, kind enough to join us on a chilly Tuesday right here on 97.3. What's going on, pal?
Hey, what's going on, Q? How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's always good to catch up with you. All right, let's get into a couple things and a couple passings in the world of sports. I know you're a big hoops fan and cover basketball. What the passing of Pat Summitt, when you look at what she meant to college basketball and women's hoops, we talk about innovator and just a legendary head coach. She was certainly a legendary head coach.
Yeah, she, and to not be disrespectful of her and her craft, but I liken her to John Wooden as far as to the women's game. She's the person that really brought the spotlight to women's game. And she's, if you listen to some of the, people who played for her, just to hear the passion that they talk about and how she made them a better person, outside of basketball as well, she's definitely going to be missed. And it's a sad day, across the board to hear got it up in your market up there, Buddy Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
It's another innovative coach. And, but to get back to Pat Summitt, I think that one of the things that people have to remember about her is that she coached during a time where the women's game wasn't really that visible. When she first started coaching at 22 at University of Tennessee, how many people get coaching jobs, first of all, at 22? So that goes to show you probably what the administration thought of the women's game at that time in the early 70s. But, to go from where she was to where she ended as far as, the last year she coached, I mean, think of all the money that she brought into that university and just the exposure she brought for young women who want to play basketball.
She never had a losing record in 38 years of coaching. I mean, think about it.
Well, another phenomenal stat, too, is that every player who exhausted their eligibility under her graduated. Also, every player that played for her, I think it was over almost a 35-year span, the same time you're talking about. Every player who played there for 4 years at least participated in one Final Four. I mean, that's phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah, all-time winningest D1 basketball coach in NCAA history. And again, you're right. I mean, a lot of people will say Pat Summitt is their John Wooden, and you know what? Deservingly so. You mentioned Buddy Ryan, the passing of Buddy Ryan, and I started the monologue just talking about the fact that, listen, he was not a great head coach, but he was a charismatic figure. Philly loved him. He never won a playoff game with the Eagles, but he was a innovator from a defensive standpoint. And you can appreciate this. When you harken back to the 80s in the NFC East, when you had Dallas and the Eagles early on in the 80s, winning their 11, 12 games and getting NFC title games, and then Dallas started to teeter off a little bit. The Eagles started to teeter off after the Campbell years. You started to see the Giants and Washington really take over the NFL and the NFC and the NFC East in the mid-'80s, so to speak. And then the Eagles started to come back a little bit. You talk about all that talent that he had defensively. I mean, forget about the 46, forget about what he did with the Jets back in the day with Walt Michaels, but he brought the credibility and the swag and the nastiness back to the Philadelphia Eagles. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 110%. He made them relevant again. Even when outside of Philly, I was at Penn State during that time, and I remember the body bag. I just remember so many things from being in the market, and I remember how relevant Eagles fans used to always feel like they were. When Q, let's be honest, being here in D.C. and you're from New York, you didn't think they were relevant. But he brought a swagger back to Philadelphia that made them feel like that they could do some great things, all because of what he had done before.
You knew too, Lake, not to cut you off, you knew no matter what, when the Skins or the Cowboys or the Giants were playing in the vet, you had to strap it up. I hate it. Listen, the Eagles, I don't care what anyone says. The Giants got their Super Bowls, and Parcells is the Hall of Famer. They could not figure out that defense when they played the Eagles. They made life miserable for Sims and company. They never found a way to get over that hump and beat that team.
Yeah, I mean, he brought a grittiness to them. And I think, for when you talk about Philadelphia sports and you talk about, coaches or players that fit the mold, person I think about is Allen Iverson, just a hard, grimy type player. And no offense to Philadelphia, but that's the city. The city is a tough city. Buddy Ryan fit the city to a T. Yeah. I mean, he was handpicked to be a guy to bring the resurgence of, Eagles football back. And I think he started it after many years of them being terrible after Dick Vermeil.
Yep, and then you had to worry about the 83 with the Marion Campbell. And then once, the funny thing is, like I said, Buddy Ryan, 0-3 in the playoffs, but you had those memorable games, as you alluded to. Let's switch gears, and again, a couple minutes with Lake Lewis, Sports Journey. Does a great job covering the NFL, credited reporter, journalist, and writer. Covers the Skins and the whole NFL as a whole. Let's get to your little, your wheelhouse with the NBA. I know you and I have gone back and forth with drafts over the years and what the Sixers have been doing. I don't want to spend too much time on them, but look, I mean, you knew they were going to pick either Ingram or Simmons. If you, who in your estimation, who's going to have the bigger upside, Ingram or Simmons? Who's going to have the longer, more successful career?
I think it's Simmons. I do. I think that he's a guy that, I went back and looked at some games this year at LSU, and he looked like he wasn't interested. And I think a lot of that has to do with coaching. No offense to whoever his coach was at LSU, but he wasn't getting coached. And, if this kid had played in Kentucky or Duke, you may have seen all those great skill sets that the Sixers hope that the fans in Philadelphia see. That's why they took him number one. You can't deny that, a kid at that size, at that height, can do certain things with a basketball, that he clearly was the best talent on the board at number one. And I think the Sixers got a great pick. The question is, who are they going to surround him with? Because you and I both know that some of those guys that they didn't move, they're going to find a way to move them. They're not going to be there. And it's just going to be interesting to see how they're going to build around this guy's talents, which are special.
Did Cleveland beat Golden State because of LeBron, or did Golden State choke away the NBA Finals?
I think it was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And I think the league is the third party that I think is involved as well. I'm not a conspiracy theorist person. I mean, that would be doing Cleveland a disservice, because they did come back.
When you start a sentence like that, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do know that the NBA has made some money here, and they're going to make even more money because the odds-on favorite that those two teams are going to be playing again next year. Don't think that it won't come back. I mean, listen, they don't suspend Draymond Green. I don't think the series goes to Cleveland, ever goes back. It's over.
This is where I want to disagree for a second. How do we know that? There's no guarantee that if he plays, the series is closed out.
All I know is when you're up 3-1 against the champs and they're going home.
That I'll agree with.
With the chance to close it. There's a reason why no other team had come back. Two other teams had done that in 50-something years, because it's impossible to do. But when you gave Cleveland life, they still have the game's best player. I mean, come on, let's not cry and feel like Cleveland didn't have anything to work with. I mean, they've got an all-world point guard as well, and those two guys played like who they are, and they won. So I give Cleveland credit. Take nothing away from it. It's a small asterisk next to it, if you ask me, just because people are going to always question what if. But Golden State didn't do what they were supposed to do, and they kind of got beat up on. They looked a little soft as the series progressed, which was surprising to me.
I equate this to the Patriots and the Giants. No one's going to remember 73 wins. They're not. They're going to remember that the Golden State Warriors were up 3-1, had a chance to close out, and Cleveland beat them, 2-3 times on their home floor. So
I agree with you 100%. And the good thing about that is I was getting a little irritated hearing. I understand young generation, they live in the moment. That's the world they live in, 18 characters on Twitter, whatever. I get that. But for them to say that Golden State team would beat the Bulls team of what was it, 96 or whatever?
Yeah, 96, yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's not even for debate. And now you're starting to hear, because of what LeBron did, is he better than Michael Jordan? Again, are you kidding me? let's not have this conversation.
You can't, but it's two different players. Comparing the Magic Johnson. There were still people after he won that were still criticizing LeBron James, coming up with these just excuses. The man flat out willed Cleveland to win. And I mean, look,
the LeBron that if we saw that cue, if we saw this LeBron all the time,
right,
he could be the greatest player of all time. I mean, he could. But he's not, because we haven't seen that. and if I see it for 2 more years, then maybe we have that conversation.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe a couple more titles. I know I only have you for a couple more minutes. Redskins offseason. I know there's a bunch of different storylines, but to me, the bullseye is going to be on Kirk Cousins' back. What have you seen limited-wise with Kirk Cousins and the Skins this offseason?
They look good. I mean, they do. I'll just say it right now. They should be the odds-on favorite to win the division. I mean, and I'm not saying win it going away by a 3-game lead. They won it last year. They did have more injuries than any other team in the league, if you go back and look at it. Maybe not to their core top 3 players like Dallas. I get that. However, they should be a better football team this year. They've got some nice additions, and I think Kirk Cousins, if he plays the way he played last year, there's no reason to believe that they can't defend their NFC East crown.
First of all, 2 things, because my ears perked up. That's a big if. That's a big. You're saying they're the odds-on favorite. We're going by last year. We're seeing how bad the division was. The Giants upgraded their defense. The Eagles got rid of a lot of players. They drafted Wentz. They re-signed Bradford. They have a new head coach. Yep. And then Dallas Cowboys is always if Tony Romo can stay healthy. And then quietly the Redskins have just kind of going about their business.
Well, they've done something that a lot of people used to, kill them for not doing, and that's they did not go out and go free agent crazy. Yes, they did bring in Josh Norman, which is a huge upgrade because a guy that you like, Odell Beckham, has torched this team. Well, they brought in his nemesis, and they, a guy that can cover Dez as well, but they've got some pieces here that, I mean, Junior Gillette looks really good. And, he's going to add to that pass rush. So they've got some things brewing here. And I like the kid Josh Doxson, even though he's been a little limited. You just look at the intangibles that he'll bring to the offense as well. Mm-hmm. It's just another weapon to go along with Deshaun, Pierre, and Jordan Reed. So It could be interesting.
Yeah, that's why we just have to suck it up for another month. And then we can get into the NFL heavy stuff. Hey, always appreciate it, my friend. Appreciate a couple moments.
No problem, man. You're doing a good job up there. Keep it up.
Appreciate it, Lake. Take care, pal. Appreciate the kind words. All right, Lake Lewis, good stuff. Covers the NFL, the Washington Redskins sports journey.